1. In Yellowstone National Park, a tourist thought he could bond with nature by walking up to a massive bison like it was a friendly cow. Cameras rolled as he extended his hand, smiling like he was about to make a new best friend. The bison disagreed. It snorted, stomped, and charged faster than the man's common sense could react. He sprinted away, losing his hat, dignity, and probably a few years off his life. Park rangers constantly warn visitors to stay at least 25 yards away from wild animals, but apparently some people believe they have Disney-level animal whispering powers. The incident ended with the man getting fined and his video going viral under the title, "Man Learns Bison Are Not Pets." Nature. 1. Tourist, 0. 2. At Yellowstone's famous thermal pools, one tourist decided the boiling, rainbow-colored water looked perfect for cooking lunch. So he lowered a pot filled with chicken and noodles straight into the spring. Minutes later, rangers spotted him in the act and were not amused. Turns out, the geothermal features are protected by federal law and hot enough to melt your boots. He was fined, banned from the park, and added to the list of people who clearly skipped science class. What's worse, he could have slipped and ended up as the main ingredient in his own soup. Tourists keep forgetting that hot springs are not nature's microwaves. They're scalding death traps that can reach 200 degrees. This soup chef made headlines and became a global symbol of why you should never mix camping recipes with volcanic geology. 3. On a tropical island in the Bahamas, one man decided his vacation photo needed extra excitement. So, he jumped into shallow waters, holding a bucket of raw fish, hoping sharks would swim close enough for a cool selfie. They did. In fact, they got a little too close. The video shows him grinning one second and screaming the next as a shark mistook his hand for dessert. Luckily, he survived with minor injuries and a bruised ego. Locals later said, the sign literally says, "Don't feed the sharks." But tourists often believe rules are just decorative. Shark selfies have since become one of the world's worst travel trends, proving that a few likes on social media are never worth a nibble from a predator. The man did get his viral fame, though not in the way he expected. 4. In Egypt, a young traveler decided that walking around the Great Pyramid wasn't enough. She wanted to climb it. Ignoring every "do not climb" sign and centuries of respect for ancient history, she started her ascent while her friends filmed for social media. Within minutes, security caught her halfway up, out of breath and regretting every life decision. Climbing the pyramids isn't just dumb, it's illegal and can land you in serious trouble. She was fined, escorted off the site, and became the latest example of tourists mistaking sacred monuments for playgrounds. Ancient Egyptians built those pyramids over 4,000 years ago, not for TikTok stunts, but as royal tombs. The lesson: if you want a better view of the pyramids, try a drone or a camel ride, not an arrest warrant. 5. Rome's Trevi Fountain is one of the most famous landmarks in the world. So, naturally, one tourist decided it was the perfect place for a midnight bubble bath. He stripped down to his underwear, hopped in, and began splashing around, while other visitors recorded in disbelief. Police quickly arrived and pulled him out, handing him a hefty fine and a lifetime of embarrassment. The man claimed he just wanted to cool off. But the fountain is a historic monument, not a public swimming pool. Every year, Rome sees several of these incidents, usually involving people who think La Dolce Vita means bathing with coins and marble statues. It's a strange global phenomenon. No matter how beautiful the landmark, someone will always try to take a dip where they absolutely shouldn't. 6. In Portugal, a tourist visiting Lisbon's Rossio Square tried to climb a historic statue to snap a selfie from the top. Unfortunately, the 126-year-old sculpture wasn't designed to handle clumsy human weight. It toppled over and shattered into pieces before horrified onlookers. The man tried to run, but was quickly caught by police. Restoration experts later said the damage was irreversible. It's a classic case of modern vanity meeting ancient art. People visit museums and heritage sites only to turn them into personal photo props. There's something tragically comic about ruining a piece of history for a few Instagram likes. The man was fined and banned from several sites, but the internet's verdict was harsher. Congratulations, you broke history. It's proof that selfie sticks and self-awareness rarely go hand in hand. 7. In Australia, a couple trusted their GPS a little too much while exploring the coast. The navigation app instructed them to turn right, and they obeyed, straight into the Pacific Ocean. Their car sank halfway before they realized blue area on the map doesn't mean a road. Locals rushed to help as the tourists climbed onto the roof, laughing nervously. No one was hurt, but the car wasn't so lucky. The story made headlines as yet another reminder that GPS is a tool, not a brain replacement. The tide eventually claimed the car, and their vacation photos now include the world's most embarrassing rescue shot. When police asked how it happened, the driver said, "The GPS told us to." Technology may guide us, but common sense still has to steer. 8. In Thailand, one man snorkeling near a coral reef decided he needed a break. Instead of floating or swimming to his boat, he plopped down right on the coral to rest. The problem? Coral reefs are living organisms, not underwater benches. His short sit destroyed decades of fragile growth. When the dive guide yelled at him, he replied, "It's just a rock." That single line made marine biologists everywhere groan in unison. Coral takes centuries to form and provides homes to countless sea creatures. By sitting on it, he might as well have stomped on an entire ecosystem. Videos of the incident went viral, turning him into an online villain. Authorities fined him heavily, and environmentalists used his story as an example of how ignorance can damage nature faster than pollution. 9. During a visit to SeaWorld in Australia, 3 friends got drunk and decided it would be hilarious to steal a penguin named Dirk from the aquarium. They sneaked in after hours, took selfies with the confused bird, and brought it back to their hotel room. The next morning, they panicked when they realized penguins don't make good pets. They released Dirk into a canal, where he was later rescued and returned unharmed. The men were arrested and fined, but their story became an internet legend. When asked why they did it, one said, "It seemed like a good idea at the time." Spoiler, it wasn't. Dirk's safe return was the only happy ending in a tale of drunken stupidity. 10. At Spain's Running of the Bulls festival, one man thought he could outrun a 1,000-pound bull while taking a selfie mid-sprint. Armed with his phone, he turned his back on the charging animals and posed like he was in a sports commercial. Seconds later, a bull clipped him, launching him through the air like a rag doll. He survived, but with broken ribs, a viral video, and a lifetime of regret. Authorities fined him under Spain's new selfie law, banning phones during the run. Ironically, the footage from bystanders made him internet famous for all the wrong reasons. The lesson is crystal clear. When surrounded by angry bulls, your priority shouldn't be your camera angle. Tourists have done many silly things. But trying to make a selfie history while escaping horns is a special level of ridiculous. 11. In Hawaii, one brave but misguided tourist decided his vacation needed a dramatic volcano selfie. He slipped past warning signs, walked dangerously close to an active lava flow, and posed with his back to a literal river of molten rock. The ground beneath him cracked, smoke rose around his shoes, and he finally panicked when he realized his feet were getting too warm for comfort. Rangers rushed in, pulled him back to safety, and immediately fined him. The man later insisted he thought the lava was only warm. proving he had never seen a science book in his life. Lava can reach 2,000 degrees, and he treated it like a background prop for likes. His photo did go viral, but mostly because the internet was amazed he survived his own decision-making. 12. In Romania, a tourist spotted a wild brown bear near the roadside and decided it was her chance to create an unforgettable vacation video. Instead of staying inside her car like every sane person, she stepped out, smiled, and walked toward the massive animal with her arms open like she was greeting an old friend. The bear looked confused at first, then irritated, and finally began moving toward her. Her scream echoed through the forest as she scrambled back into the car while her friend recorded the entire disaster. Rangers later said this was one of the most reckless encounters they had seen all year. Brown bears are powerful animals that weigh several hundred pounds, not oversized puppies waiting for affection. She left with an unforgettable memory, shaky footage, and thankfully no claw marks. 13. In Italy, a tired tourist walked into the airport, placed his backpack on the luggage scale, and then climbed onto the conveyor belt himself as if it were a personal relaxation zone. Within seconds, the belt carried him through a hidden rubber curtain and straight into the restricted sorting area. Security cameras captured him peacefully napping on his back as suitcases piled around him. Officers rushed to stop the system and rescue him before he ended up inside a cargo container. The man insisted he thought it was a waiting area and didn't notice the warning signs plastered everywhere. Airport security wasn't amused and gave him a fine along with a stern lecture. To this day, staff members still talk about the confused traveler who almost checked himself in along with his own luggage. 14. In Turkey's famous burning rocks, visitors often marvel at pockets of natural gas seeping from cracks and flames that never go out. One tourist, however, decided this fiery geological wonder wasn't enough entertainment. He pulled out a cigarette, flicked his lighter, and began smoking less than a foot from an active flame vent. Guides screamed at him, while other tourists backed away in fear of becoming part of an unexpected explosion. Luckily, nothing ignited, but he managed to terrify everyone in the area. Authorities removed him from the site and banned him from returning. He later told reporters he thought the cave was just warm air, which proves a shocking number of people don't understand fire safety. It became one of the year's most talked about travel blunders, and the staff still shake their heads when recalling it. 15. During a flight from London, a tourist stood up mid-air and calmly walked toward the emergency exit. Flight attendants chased after him as he confidently reached for the handle. When they demanded to know what he was doing, he replied that he just needed fresh air. Passengers stared at him in disbelief as the crew restrained him and explained that opening the door at 30,000 feet would turn the entire cabin into a disaster scene. The man looked genuinely shocked, insisting he thought it would be like rolling down a car window. The pilot made an emergency landing. Police escorted him off the plane, and he became an instant legend in aviation stupidity. Airplanes are pressurized metal tubes, not convertible cars, yet somehow this traveler missed that basic fact. 16. In Bali, one tourist became fascinated with a group of monkeys near a temple and decided to follow them inside. He giggled while recording the animals, unaware that Balinese monkeys are expert thieves. By the time he reached the courtyard, 3 monkeys had jumped onto him like tiny robbers. One grabbed his sunglasses, another snatched his phone, and a third pulled his wallet right out of his pocket. Local guides laughed as he panicked and begged for his belongings. They eventually coaxed the monkeys with fruit, but not before the animals opened his wallet and tossed his cards everywhere. The tourist admitted he thought the monkeys were friendly, even though signs warned visitors to avoid them. He left the temple with a rescued phone, bruised pride, and a newfound fear of adorable animals. 17. On a beach in Greece, a tourist spotted what she believed was a plastic bag floating in the waves. Being environmentally conscious, she marched into the water and picked it up with determination. Unfortunately, it wasn't a bag. It was a living jellyfish with long, stinging tentacles. The creature wrapped around her arm, and she screamed so loudly that beachgoers assumed a shark had arrived. Lifeguards rushed over, treated her burns, and explained that the ocean is filled with creatures that look deceptively harmless. She spent the rest of her vacation wrapped in bandages and avoiding the sea entirely. Her friends later joked that she became a hero for marine cleanup, even though she cleaned up something that definitely wasn't trash. The story spread quickly, reminding tourists to look carefully before grabbing anything in the water. 18. During a beach vacation in Thailand, a tourist decided he wanted fresh coconut water. Instead of buying a ready-cut one from the vendors outside, he brought an uncut coconut back to his hotel room and attempted to open it using the bathroom sink. He smashed it repeatedly until the porcelain cracked down the middle and water started leaking everywhere. The coconut remained completely intact while the sink looked like it had survived a small earthquake. Hotel staff rushed in after hearing the noise and were horrified at the damage. The man proudly explained he was just doing some island cooking. He spent the rest of his trip paying for repairs and drinking juice from cartons. This story became a hotel legend about the tourist who managed to defeat a sink but not a coconut. 19. In Venice, a confused tourist walked along the Grand Canal searching for a place to swim. He spotted water, saw boats, and decided it looked close enough to the ocean. Without hesitation, he took off his shirt and dove straight in. Within seconds, he came back up gagging from the dirty canal water as locals yelled at him to get out. Gondoliers rushed over, shouting about pollution, boat traffic, and the dangers of underwater machinery. The tourist climbed out, smelling like a mixture of algae and sadness, while onlookers filmed the entire spectacle. Venice police fined him for illegal swimming, and he became the main character of every travel blog that week. It was a classic example of someone confusing beautiful view with safe place to swim. 20. At a wildlife sanctuary in the Seychelles, a tourist decided the giant tortoises looked like slow-moving rides. Ignoring signs that clearly stated not to touch or climb on them, he approached the biggest tortoise and swung his leg over its shell like it was a rental scooter. The tortoise immediately froze, then hissed loudly and lurched forward with surprising speed. Guides ran toward him, yelling, while other tourists snapped photos of the unfolding chaos. The man fell off and landed in the dirt as the tortoise retreated, offended and stressed. He was escorted out of the sanctuary and fined for disturbing a protected animal. Giant tortoises can live more than a century, yet they still have to deal with clueless visitors trying to use them as amusement park attractions. 21. In Australia, one man ran out of money during his trip and decided that buying a plane ticket was overrated. Instead, he attempted to mail himself home in a wooden crate. He packed some food, a bottle of water, and a small pillow, then convinced a friend to ship him as cargo to London. The plan failed spectacularly. His journey lasted only a few hours before customs officials opened the box and found a very sweaty, very dehydrated man gasping for air. Authorities couldn't believe anyone would actually try this. He was fined for illegal transport and told to buy a normal flight like everyone else. The best part? He spent more on shipping supplies than an actual plane ticket would have cost. This might be the dumbest example of budget travel ever recorded. 22. In Barcelona's Plaza de Catalunya, one tourist decided her feet were too tired after a day of sightseeing. So she sat on the edge of a centuries-old fountain, slipped off her shoes, and began scrubbing her feet with soap right in front of everyone. Locals stared in disbelief as she created her own mini foot spa in one of the city's most beloved landmarks. Police arrived and told her she was defiling a national monument. She seemed genuinely confused and said, "But it's just water." What she didn't realize was that the fountain's water system is part of a preserved heritage structure, not a public bath. She was fined, shamed online, and featured in a local newspaper under the headline, "Tourist Turns History into Foot Wash." Some people really do treat the world like one big bathroom. 23. A tourist visiting Iceland for the first time wanted to see the famous Northern Lights. When his tour guide explained that they depend on solar activity and atmospheric conditions, he confidently asked, "So who turns them on?" Everyone laughed, thinking it was a joke, until he started looking around for a light switch near the observation area. He genuinely believed the government controlled the aurora borealis for tourists like an attraction show. The guide patiently explained the science behind it, while the man looked disappointed that it wasn't something he could schedule on demand. Later, he posted online complaining that the lights didn't turn on during his trip. The comment section did not hold back. His misunderstanding became a viral meme and proof that not everyone should skip geography class before buying plane tickets. 24. On Ireland's cliffs of Moher, one man decided he needed a dramatic selfie, winds, rain, and all. Ignoring every safety barrier and the howling storm around him, he climbed over the fence to get closer to the edge. Waves crashed below, wind whipped his jacket, and tourists screamed as he posed with one foot hanging off the cliff. Right after snapping his photo, a gust nearly blew him off, and security raced to pull him back. He survived, but the photo was blurry and completely unusable. Local authorities fined him for reckless behavior, calling it one of the stupidest stunts they'd seen. It's amazing how often people risk their lives for a few likes. The man said he just wanted a photo that felt alive. Well, he almost wasn't. 25. In New Zealand, a couple hiking near a volcanic area decided to make the most of nature's heat. They laid a pan on the steaming ground and started frying steaks over the geothermal vents. When rangers arrived, the smell of sizzling meat greeted them like a bad barbecue commercial. The couple proudly explained they were having a volcano picnic. The rangers weren't impressed. They confiscated the pan and handed them a fine for environmental damage and trespassing in a restricted zone. While the internet loved the absurd idea, experts warned that sudden gas eruptions could have turned their lunch into an explosive dinner. The couple's volcanic cuisine quickly became a legendary example of tourists confusing danger with adventure. They learned the hard way that cooking steak on a volcano isn't exactly a Michelin-approved experience. 26. In Italy's Pompeii ruins, a woman picked up a small stone fragment as a souvenir. She thought it would look nice on her shelf back home. 2 weeks later, she mailed it back to the museum with a letter claiming it had brought her bad luck. She said she lost her job, her boyfriend, and her car, all in 1 week after taking it. Curators received dozens of similar letters every year from tourists returning stolen artifacts, convinced they were cursed. The Pompeii staff now keeps those letters on display as cautionary tales. Scientists call it coincidence. Locals call it karma. Either way, the woman's little stone turned into a life lesson about respecting history and not stealing from ancient sites that have already seen more than enough tragedy. 27. At a zoo in India, a man ignored fences, warning signs, and reality itself when he jumped into a lion enclosure to say hi. Visitors screamed as the lions approached, curious but cautious. The man raised his hands and shouted that he loved animals. The lions didn't seem to share the feeling. Zoo staff rushed to distract them with food and managed to pull the man out just in time. When police questioned him, he calmly said, "I just wanted to talk to them." The video of his conversation attempt spread online like wildfire, turning him into a global punchline. He escaped with scratches and a lifetime ban from every zoo in the region. It's hard to imagine what he expected the lions to say back. Probably not welcome. 28. One tourist in China's Great Wall apparently didn't want to walk all the way back to the nearest bathroom. Instead, he decided to relieve himself behind one of the historic stone sections while other visitors were nearby. A guide caught him mid-act and immediately called security. Tourists gasped while others filmed, shouting at him in disbelief. The man tried to defend himself by saying he couldn't hold it, but authorities didn't accept the excuse. He was fined and publicly shamed online as one of the worst tourists of the year. The Great Wall has survived wars, earthquakes, and centuries of erosion, yet somehow it keeps getting disrespected by modern travelers with bad timing. It's astonishing how many people forget that world wonders are not toilets with scenic views. 29. In Paris's Louvre Museum, one man thought it would be cool to fly his drone indoors to get a cinematic shot of the Mona Lisa. He launched it quietly, but within seconds, the buzzing sound echoed across the gallery. Visitors ducked, security guards shouted, and the drone crashed into a marble pillar before tumbling to the floor in pieces. The man was escorted out by guards, who confiscated the broken drone and fined him heavily. He said he just wanted a new perspective on art. What he got instead was a ban from the museum and a lifetime of online ridicule. Flying a drone near priceless artwork is like juggling knives in a fireworks factory. Nothing good can come from it. Even Mona Lisa seemed unimpressed. 30. In Greece, a woman spotted what she thought was an open, quiet stretch of pavement near her hotel. She laid out her towel, put on her sunglasses, and began sunbathing peacefully. Locals started shouting and running toward her because that quiet pavement was actually the end of a small island airport runway. Moments later, a plane descended overhead, blasting her with jet fumes strong enough to send her towel flying into the air. Airport staff dragged her to safety, shocked that anyone could confuse a runway with a beach. The woman insisted it looked peaceful from afar. Her suntanning adventure ended with a massive fine and a sunburn courtesy of jet exhaust. To this day, locals tell new tourists about the woman who tried to tan on a landing strip. 31. In Paris, one overly curious tourist pressed every button in the Eiffel Tower elevator just to see what would happen. What happened was chaos. The elevator jolted, froze between levels, and shut down completely with him and a few unlucky strangers inside. For over an hour, they were trapped while engineers worked to reset the system. When asked why he did it, the man said he wanted to visit all the floors quickly. The group missed their tour, the operator lost his patience, and the internet gained yet another story about why curiosity and buttons don't mix. The man became known as the Eiffel Elevator Guy, and his travel group refused to sit next to him for the rest of the trip. Moral of the story: when you see 12 buttons, resist the toddler instinct to press them all. 32. On a Greek island, a tourist decided she was close enough to Turkey to simply swim there. She told her friends she'd save money on the ferry and jumped into the sea. Half an hour later, lifeguards were alerted when she started waving for help. Exhausted and surrounded by jellyfish, the Coast Guard rescued her and explained that the border wasn't just a short swim away. She had made it less than a kilometer before nearly passing out. When asked what she was thinking, she proudly said, "It looked close on the map." Her sunburned, shivering rescue photo became international news. It's amazing how many travelers think they can outswim geography. She later admitted she couldn't actually swim well and only learned from YouTube videos. Not every international journey needs a passport, but it shouldn't involve drowning either. 33. In Thailand, a man spotted a crocodile resting near a lagoon and thought it would make a cool Instagram photo. He crept up slowly, crouched beside the predator, and flashed a peace sign while his friend filmed. The crocodile didn't appreciate the attention. It whipped around, snapping its jaws just inches from his leg. The man screamed, fell backward into the mud and scrambled up a tree while locals laughed and yelled at him to stay still. Rangers arrived to escort him out, shaking their heads. He escaped with only a torn shirt and a global reminder that wild reptiles don't care about your followers. Later, he posted the video online with the caption, "Almost got it," earning millions of views and a permanent spot in the Hall of Fame for ridiculous vacation selfies. 34. At a large hedge maze in England, a tourist couple spent 2 hours trying to find their way out. What began as fun quickly turned into panic when the sun started setting. Instead of following signs or waiting for staff, they decided to call 911 to report themselves missing. The dispatcher tried not to laugh while guiding them to stay calm until employees located them, barely a few feet from the exit. When asked how they got so confused, the husband said, "It all looked the same." The maze owner later joked that they set a record for the fastest emergency call in the park's history. Locals now use the story as a tourist warning. If you can't navigate IKEA without getting lost, maybe skip the full-size hedge labyrinth. 35. While visiting Rome's Colosseum, one woman decided it was the perfect place to hang her freshly washed laundry. She spread shirts and socks across a low section of ancient stone to let the sun do its job. Tourists watched in disbelief as she turned a 2,000-year-old wonder into a backyard clothesline. Guards quickly intervened, confiscated her laundry, and escorted her out. She explained she didn't think it would matter since it's already old. Her excuse became legendary among Italian guides, who now warn groups not to use historical ruins for laundry purposes. Photos of her colorful socks fluttering beside Roman arches spread online like wildfire. It was the perfect mix of ignorance and creativity, proof that some travelers treat World Heritage sites like outdoor laundromats. 36. In Japan, a tourist exploring Kyoto's temples realized his phone battery was dying. Instead of waiting to find a proper outlet, he spotted an electrical socket inside an ancient shrine and plugged his charger right in. Monks gasped in horror as he casually scrolled through social media while sitting beside a centuries-old altar. When confronted, he said, "Relax, I'll only be a minute." Authorities escorted him out and explained that he had disrespected a sacred site. He seemed confused, insisting, "It's just electricity." The story spread across Japanese news outlets as a classic example of tourists mixing technology with tradition. The man's phone did charge for 5% before it was unplugged, but his reputation instantly drained to zero. Temples are for reflection, not recharging your battery like it's an airport lounge. 37. During a safari in Kenya, a man leaned out of his jeep to pet a passing elephant, holding his phone in one hand to film the moment. The elephant flicked its trunk, knocking his phone into the dirt and giving him a mild shove that sent his hat flying. Guides screamed for him to sit down, but he kept laughing, saying the elephant was just being playful. Moments later, the animal trumpeted loudly, forcing the driver to speed away. The footage went viral as proof that nature doesn't need your affection. Elephants are majestic creatures, but not plush toys waiting for selfies. When interviewed, the man claimed it was worth it for the views, though his terrified face in the final frame told a different story. The internet crowned him the man who almost hugged extinction. 38. In Ireland, one tourist spotted a road sign reading "Leprechaun Crossing" and decided it would make the perfect souvenir. Late at night, he unscrewed the bolts and proudly carried it back to his hotel. The next morning, police tracked him down after surveillance footage showed his escapade. The fine was hefty, and the locals were furious. Apparently, that sign had been part of a beloved local joke. When asked why he took it, the man said he thought no one would miss it. News outlets turned it into a national laugh, and he later apologized in public, calling it a misunderstanding fueled by beer. His punishment included community service and the shame of returning the sign himself. 39. In Dubai, a couple decided to test how far delivery services could go. They set up camp in the middle of the desert dunes, then placed an online order for pizza, adding GPS coordinates for the location. 2 hours later, a confused delivery driver arrived in a four-wheel vehicle, covered in sand and disbelief. The pizza was cold, but the couple cheered as if they'd achieved something historic. The company later banned deliveries outside city limits, citing unreasonable requests. Photos of them posing with the dusty pizza box became a social media meme titled "Fast Food, Slow Logic." The driver called it the strangest delivery of his life. The couple proudly claimed they were pioneers of desert dining. Everyone else called them pioneers of boredom. 40. At a luxury hotel in Dubai, one guest wanted to dim the lights in his room, but couldn't find the switch. He noticed a red handle near the door, pulled it confidently, and immediately set off the fire alarm for the entire building. Sprinklers activated, guests ran into hallways in panic, and staff scrambled to find the cause. When they burst into his room, he stood frozen, holding the handle, whispering, "I think I made a mistake." Firefighters arrived within minutes to discover there was no fire, just one confused traveler. The evacuation cost the hotel thousands, and the man spent the rest of his stay apologizing to everyone. To his credit, he never touched another switch again. The story became hotel legend, shared by staff every time a new guest asks, "What's this red thing for?" 41. There's nothing quite like getting a spray tan before heading to a sunny vacation spot, except when that tan decides to melt. One woman proudly strutted along the Hawaiian coast, showing off her deep bronze glow. Then came the heat and humidity. Within an hour, streaks of orange dripped down her legs like melted caramel. Locals thought she was covered in rust. By noon, she looked like a half-peeled sweet potato. Instead of embracing the sun, she spent the entire afternoon scrubbing herself raw in a hotel shower, staining every towel in the process. The staff called her Miss Tropicana for the rest of her stay. 42. The classic tourist move, feeding seagulls on the beach. It starts innocent enough. A chip toss, a cute bird, a photo op. Then comes the invasion. Within seconds, 50 squawking seagulls descended on the scene like airborne pirates. The poor man dropped his fries and ran screaming, arms flailing as birds dove for his hat and sandwich. Nearby families cheered, phones recording the chaos. By the time he escaped, the fries, his lunch, and half his dignity were gone. The moral: never feed one seagull unless you're prepared to feed the entire winged mafia. 43. This one's legendary. A jet-lagged tourist in Italy entered his hotel bathroom, spotted a curious porcelain fixture beside the toilet, and, thinking it was an eco-friendly sink, filled his water bottle from it. The shock came when he turned on the wrong knob, spraying himself directly in the face with bidet water. He spent the next hour Googling, "Why does my Italian sink attack me?" before realizing his mistake. The front desk clerk nearly passed out laughing when he asked how to turn off the little fountain next to the toilet. He didn't leave a tip, but he left a story to remember. 44. In Aruba, a tourist spotted a group of pink flamingos wading gracefully in shallow waters. Excited, she charged into the lagoon for a selfie, convinced the birds would pose politely. Instead, they flapped, squawked, and fled in every direction. In her panic, she tripped and fell face-first into the mud. As she stumbled back, a lifeguard shook his head, saying, "Ma'am, those are wild animals, not Disney extras." The viral video titled "Woman vs. Flamingos" later gained 1 million views, proving that no one wins against nature's sassiest birds. 45. One adventurous couple booked a stay at Sweden's famous ice hotel, a masterpiece carved entirely from frozen blocks. The problem? They didn't realize it was literally below freezing inside. Wearing only light pajamas, they thought the ice aesthetic was just for photos. By 3 a.m., they were wrapped in curtains, towels, and sheer regret. The husband tried to warm his hands by breathing on them, while his wife threatened to sue the Arctic. In the morning, staff found them asleep in the lobby, hugging a heater like long-lost family. The experience was magical, they said, once feeling returned to their toes. 46. A tourist in the Bahamas was thrilled when a bright green parrot landed on his shoulder. Locals cheered, cameras flashed, and he smiled wide, until the parrot snatched his sunglasses and flew away. Laughing, he clapped, thinking it was a train trick. It wasn't. The parrot vanished into the trees, squawking triumphantly. Minutes later, another bird swooped down and tried to grab his hat. Turns out, the local parrots had learned to steal shiny objects from clueless tourists. He went home squinting, sunburned, and slightly traumatized, wondering how he'd been robbed by a bird with better fashion sense. 47. In Egypt, one overconfident tourist decided that climbing the Great Pyramid of Giza would make a legendary Instagram post. He ignored the signs, the guards, and centuries of cultural respect. Halfway up, he realized it wasn't as easy as it looked, especially under the scorching sun. When authorities caught him, he was red-faced, sweating and begging for water. The fine was enormous, and his epic video turned into a clip of him being escorted away by security. He posted it anyway, captioned, "When adventure meets consequences." Internet fame achieved, just not the kind he hoped for. 48. In Costa Rica, a woman thought feeding a curious iguana a bite of her ice cream cone would make a cute memory. The iguana thought otherwise. It lunged, knocking the entire cone onto her shirt before climbing her leg to claim it. Screaming, she spun in circles while her friends laughed uncontrollably. The iguana won the battle, triumphantly licking the ice cream off her arm before scurrying away. Tourists applauded. Somewhere in the jungle, that iguana still brags about the day he conquered Vanilla Swirl. 49. A group of friends in Morocco paid for a peaceful desert camel ride at sunset. Peaceful lasted 10 seconds. One friend thought it'd be funny to snap a selfie while the camel stood up. Bad timing. The sudden movement sent her tumbling off, landing in the sand with her phone buried deep. Another camel sneezed on her face, coating her in desert slime. The guide sighed. Camels don't do filters. The video went viral, of course, because nothing screams vacation bliss like a mouthful of sand and camel drool. 50. In Japan, a tourist read online that natural hot springs were great for the skin. What he didn't realize was that the particular one he visited was for viewing, not bathing. Stripping down, he hopped in, only to find out it was nearly boiling. Locals screamed, "No!" as he jumped out, red as a boiled shrimp. The sign he ignored literally said, "Warning, not for human use." He spent the rest of his trip applying aloe vera and explaining to curious strangers how he'd nearly turned himself into soup. The travel vlog title: How I Cooked Myself in Japan. 51. Some tourists crave adventure, but one man in Iceland took it to fiery new levels. He decided to roast marshmallows using the steam vents near an active volcano. As he leaned in with his stick, a gust of sulfurous air blasted him in the face, knocking off his hat and toasting his eyebrows instead. The marshmallow flew into the lava, and his friends doubled over laughing as he shouted, "I was this close to perfection." A local guide calmly informed him that the vent temperatures could melt a shoe in seconds. His response: "Guess I'll stick to campfires." 52. In the Bahamas, a group of overconfident vloggers thought it would be epic to touch a nurse shark during a shallow water tour. One guy reached out, smiling for the camera, until the shark snapped back, giving him a warning bite on the arm. Panic erupted, cameras fell, and everyone sprinted out of the water like cartoon characters. The guide, unimpressed, said, "It's called Shark Alley for a reason." The man's minor scrape turned into internet fame after the video titled, "He Tried to Pet a Shark," racked up millions of views. 53. Romance meets gravity in this Parisian classic. A nervous man prepared to propose atop the Eiffel Tower, rehearsing his lines for days. When the big moment came, he knelt down, right as the ring slipped from his fingers and tumbled through the metal grates. Horrified, he dove forward, nearly losing his balance while bystanders gasped. Thankfully, a maintenance worker found the ring a few levels below hours later. The fiancé, laughing through tears, said yes anyway, while tourists applauded the most dramatic proposal of the year. Somewhere in the footage, you can hear him whisper, "Next time, we're doing this indoors." 54. A family traveling to Kenya landed ready for their dream safari, except their luggage didn't. Determined not to waste the trip, they bought whatever clothes they could find in a nearby village. The result? The dad in neon swim shorts, the mom in a floral sundress, and the kids wearing oversized soccer jerseys. During the first safari stop, the guide burst out laughing and said, "You look like you're hunting fashion instead of lions." Despite the mishap, the photos were priceless. Their official trip name became the Great Safari of Lost Luggage, proving that even when everything goes wrong, the memories can still be perfectly ridiculous. Subscribe for more upcoming content.